Your boy Charles in his word. Hit that thumbs up button. We checking out the Diary of a Madman. Brad Scarface Jordan's Scarface, legendary rapper out of Houston from the Ghetto Boys. Um, so we're gonna check it out, guys. I'm gonna come back with my reaction.
The West Coast Rap All-Stars had just put out the record We're All in the Same Gang. Dr. Dre had produced the song and he'd used a sample of James Brown's untitled instrumental. I thought what Dre had done was dope, but I didn't think he'd used the sample quite right. I thought he could have put the snares in some different spots. So when I came across that James Brown record while I was working on my own shit, that's exactly what I did. I flipped the sample and recorded a version of the song in my apartment. That's where that album started. I was working mostly with Beto and this guy Doug King, who was a producer and kind of like a Rap-A-Lot staff engineer. Doug had his own studio, Doug King Studios, over off of Hillcroft, and I was recording roughs at my place and then going over to Doug's studio to work on them and get them tightened up. Doug had a room full of records, an MPC-60 and an EPS sampler, and that's where a lot of the beats I was making came from. I would sample something from his collection, and then he would truncate them and make them smaller to where I wanted them to be. Then I would loop the tightened up sample and make the beat. Those sessions kind of set the blueprint for how it would go with a lot of the guys I would work with down the line. I was a student of the music, and I always knew what sound I was going for. So I knew where to look to find the right sounds or the right sample. Like, I knew we could go to James Brown's Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud to get the With Your Bad Self drop. Or if I was looking for a certain string or harp sound, I would know where to find that. But I wouldn't know how to push the right buttons to get it all the way there. Whether it was Doug King then or someone like Mike Dean later, I always benefited from having some of the best technical minds around to help me out, back me up, and bring the sounds to life. The second song that I recorded for Mr. Scarface's back was The Pimp. Then I did Your Ass Got Took, and then I did Mind Playing Tricks on Me. I've got to give it up to my grandma for that one. She was always saying that. Anytime she'd misplace her glasses or lose something, it was always, my mind is playing tricks on me again. She had a whole bunch of sayings like that, damn near a whole book's worth if you were to write them all down. So I just took that from her, married it to all of the depression and darkness and paranoia that I'd always carried with me since I was a kid, put it over an Isaac Hayes sample that I'd found, and made the song. I thought it was dope, but I had no idea what it would become. Not at all. At the same time that I was working on my solo album, the Ghetto Boys were also recording for a new album over at Sound Arts, which was another studio we were using a lot at the time. We weren't doing it the way we'd done Grip It. I wasn't going to let myself get stranded on that ranch again. There hadn't been shit to do out there except look at horses and shit. So instead of holding up together out in the country until we got the album done, we were all working separately, and then we'd just bring the shit we'd been recording independently to the table to see what we had. So I was going back and forth between Doug King and Sound Arts working on both albums. When James comes by Doug King's spot one day to hear what me, Beto, and Doug have been putting together, I played him Mind Playing Tricks on Me, and he thought it was cool, but he wasn't blown away. I played him some other records, and he left, and I figured that was that and got back to work. Well, then James takes Mind Playing Tricks on Me and a few other songs that we'd put together to California to play some music for Priority just to let them know we were working and to try to get a budget opened up for my solo album. He plays Mind Playing Tricks on Me, and the people at Priority lose their shit. James comes back from that meeting and tells me, "Man, I don't know what it is about this song, but they love it out there." The original version of the song was a solo record, but Priority had already opened the budget for the new Ghetto Boys album, so James decided he wanted to get Willie D and Bushwick on the record. Willie didn't want to do it at first because he didn't think the record would work, but he wrote a verse to it anyway. I wrote Bushwick's verse, and then Willie came through with the "I make big money, I drive big cars" verse. And the people at Priority have been right. Mind Playing Tricks on Me was a smash. I had no idea that song was going to be that fucking big. Shit. To this day, I still never know whether or not a song is going to work. I've always been much more focused on just making the music I like to make and the music I want to hear. I know what I like, and I know when I think a song is dope. But when it comes to actually picking the songs that might work as singles, I leave that shit to someone else. Well, Mind Playing Tricks on Me worked like a motherfucker. It was our first real hit. It wasn't just big in the South or big in the Midwest or big in the hood. It was big everywhere. It topped the Billboard rap chart. It broke into the top 40. It got us on crossover radio. It let everyone know that there was a rap group coming out of Houston that could make some serious noise. I was 20 years old when we recorded that song. By the time I was 21, it and the Ghetto Boys were fucking huge. The year before Mind Playing Tricks on Me came out, I'll never forget it. We'd gone to New York for the New Music Seminar, which was this annual conference that brought all of the biggest players in hip-hop to New York for a bunch of panels and showcases and shit like that all over town. We performed up there and had gotten booed like a motherfucker. Those backpack-toting true hip-hop motherfuckers didn't want to hear us. They wanted a cipher and to hear about the true mathematics, not a bunch of Texas niggas calling bitches bitches and rapping about slanging dope and beating niggas up. That shit wasn't hip-hop. 6 months after Mind Playing Tricks on Me dropped, we were back on the road with a Tribe Called Quest, this time as part of a tour called The Greatest Rap Show Ever. It was us, ATCQ, Naughty by Nature, Queen Latifah, leaders of the New School, Kid and Play, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Public Enemy. Everybody was on that motherfucker. And we played Madison Square Garden, the world's greatest arena, in January of 1992. And we rocked that bitch. That crowd knew every single word. That was big. I remember walking off that stage with such a rush. Ground had been broken. We'd showed out in New York, the birthplace of hip-hop, and we'd been embraced.